Joining us now from Washington is Congressman Hakeem Jeffries, who represents parts of Brooklyn, and he is putting forth legislation to respond to this growing crisis at the border. Congressman, thanks for being here with us this morning. You agree it's a crisis down there, a humanitarian crisis?
Well, it's certainly a humanitarian crisis. There's an expectation that upwards of 90,000 unaccompanied minors will cross the U.S.-Mexico border this year. Those are numbers that have dramatically increased even from the previous 2 years. In 2012, it was approximately 13,000. In 2013, that number increased to about 24,000.
So why are so many children, minors, doing this? Why are they making this very dangerous journey and coming to the U.S.? Is it because they think that there's safe haven here? I mean, most of them, when they get to the border, literally turn themselves in to the Border Patrol.
Well, these are children who are fleeing extreme violence, in some cases sexual abuse, certainly gang recruitment that has increased in its intensity over the last several years in the so-called Northern Triangle of Central American countries, Guatemala, El Salvador, and Honduras. Honduras, in fact, is now the most dangerous country in the entire world, more dangerous statistically than even Afghanistan, Iraq, and Syria. Beyond that, 95% of the homicides between 2011 and 2013 in these three countries that the children are fleeing go unresolved. And so you have a state of lawlessness that exists, increased gang and criminal activity centered around the drug cartels, and the fact that these young children are being targeted for recruitment at a very early age.
And so their families are sending them here, in a sense, for safety. However, you heard Hillary Clinton, former Secretary of State, say, send them back. What do you say?
Well, if the children don't have a legal right to be present, as soon as we can figure out a compassionate way to reunite them with a family member back at home, I certainly agree with the former Secretary of State that that is the appropriate approach for this country to take. Many of these children may actually have legitimate claims pursuant to laws that are already on the books. Asylum claims if they have a reasonable basis to fear persecution if they're sent back home. They may also be eligible for a special immigrant status connected to the fact that they are minor children if they have been abused or neglected or abandoned by their parents. These aren't laws that were put onto the books by the Obama administration. They've long existed as part of the United States' immigration policy, and that's why I'll be introducing legislation on Monday designed to provide these unaccompanied minors with legal assistance so we can actually determine who has a lawful right to stay, even if it's temporarily, and who should be returned pursuant to our nation's law.
There are some who blame the DREAM Act for this influx of children. What do you say?
Well, the DREAM Act is not law. The president did enact deferred action in 2012 connected to Dreamers. But it's important to note, and I had this conversation with Homeland Security Secretary Jay Johnson yesterday, that the deferred action only applies to young children or children, minors, who have been in the country since 2007. And in fact, even the comprehensive immigration reform bill that was passed by the Senate last year would only apply to individuals who are undocumented, who are in the country as of December of 2011. So there's been no change in administration policy. There's a lot of rhetoric to that regard down here in Washington, D.C., but it's emanating from individuals who want to kill comprehensive immigration reform at all costs. And so they're confusing a humanitarian crisis to try and undermine the need to change a broken immigration system. Those are two separate issues.
So, because my understanding is that current U.S. policy allows young minors from Central American countries to be released to an adult here in the U.S. Well, court hearing, obviously, but that they can come here and be reunited with family members here. And the assumption, I think, by a lot of families is that's their doorway to get into this country and to perhaps stay here. Is that a wrong assumption? Is that what you're saying?
Well, I don't think that's a correct assumption. As those individuals are reunited, the children with family members who can be located here, and that's a very difficult proposition in many instances, during the first 72 hours of their arrival, once they cross the U.S.-Mexican border, they are processed through our immigration system and proceedings are initiated. After those 72 hours, current U.S. law says that the Department of Homeland Security releases those children into the custody of the Department of Health and Human Services, HHS. At that point, HHS begins the process of trying to locate either family members who are here in the United States or foster care individuals who can provide for custody temporarily as these unaccompanied minors go through the immigration system.
So you could see that people in Honduras or in other Central American countries might see that as a doorway for their children to stay in this country, though, right?
Well, they might perceive it as a doorway in some instances, although there's no real empirical evidence that that, in fact, is the reason. One thing that's important to note, other countries in the region, Mexico, Panama, Costa Rica, and Nicaragua, as well as Belize, experienced significant increases in asylum applications over the last 5 years. So, Diana, what does that suggest? It suggests that the pull is not from the United States. It suggests that there's a push out of those three countries, Guatemala, El Salvador, and Honduras, because of the violence.
Well, should this country...
of those individuals...
Well, should this country be working...
Some of those individuals are going to other countries.
Right.
Some are coming to the United States, but it's a push out.
Right. But it's clearly the influx is children. So it's different than it was 8 to 10 years ago when it was mostly adults or even families coming over. But my question for you is, in terms of what this country should be doing to stop this, migration of children from coming into this country, do you secure the border more so between Mexico and Guatemala, because that's where a lot of people are coming across? How do you deal with those countries so that families aren't sending their children here?
It's a great question, and that is fundamentally what will need to occur. The State Department is going to have to get involved in dealing with those three countries, particularly Guatemala and Honduras, as well as El Salvador, dealing with the underlying conditions that exist, the rampant violence, the unchecked environment with which individuals can intimidate young children, which is sparking these departures in large measure. We also, as you've indicated, Diana, have to secure the border between Mexico and Guatemala. That's a border that is less than 200 miles. The United States border with Mexico is greater than 2,000 miles. And so logic suggests that it makes more sense for us, in order to stem the tide, to secure that southern border that Mexico has with Guatemala. It's a lot easier to do than the 2,000-mile-plus border that we have.
With Mexico.
It's sort of like saying, to defend the situation that we confront, it's better to defend on the 35-yard line than it is on the 5-yard line.
Okay, one final quick question here. In the short term, you've got Border Patrol agents who are absolutely overwhelmed with all of these children. What do you do to help them? And that 3-day rule that those children are supposed to be out of those detention centers in 3 days, which in some cases I'm told is not happening.
Well, the Border Patrol agents are doing an incredible job. These are individuals, many of whom are former military personnel. These are individuals who are tough but compassionate, and they're demonstrating that compassion right now in terms of doing the best job that they can. We obviously have to provide them with additional resources, as the Obama administration has, and we've got to also look at non-governmental organizations. The Red Cross has really stepped up to provide assistance and is facilitating, as I understand it, bringing in other non-for-profit organizations to help out the Border Patrol agents in dealing with this wave, this humanitarian crisis that we confront now in America.
And hopefully it can happen quickly. Congressman, thank you for being with us on the program this morning. We appreciate it. When we come back, the